Let's go to our next guest on the program. Westpac giving evidence today, long awaited, about the money laundering scandal which was stealing all the headlines last year. Deborah O'Neill, Labor Senator, is going to be on that committee and she joins me now. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Tom.
So Westpac being grilled today over money laundering. You've been asking for a list of documents, still not received them back as of yesterday. Have they come back yet?
Well, no, they haven't. Some documents have come back, including, like little glossy information like this, which goes nowhere near the information that we need about what's actually been going on. Our inquiry is into audit, and we want to know what's going on with the interaction between audit and the big bank. We know that they have to provide a document. I've got a copy of the confidential document that Westpac had to provide to APRA, which tells about their knowledge of problems with their system for anti-money laundering a long, long time, years and years ago. So the questions are, what's going on in this space with auditors? What we've found, even this morning, that we've actually discerned from the Accounting Professional and Ethics Standards Board that there's actually been no cases go before a court about the ethics standards of auditors. So I've got great concerns about cover-up, about facts that we need to know. We know that auditors are in Westpac, and they're being employed by them in areas for risk management, including the oversight of anti-money laundering.
So just on the documents though, what are they specifically? Have they given a reason for that, why they haven't given them, and are there consequences? What happens from here?
Well, largely they've claimed that it's commercial in confidence. Now, really they don't understand the power of the government. Here in the Parliament, we have the opportunity to stand up for the Australian people and get the facts on the record. And I think that this is, from Westpac, who are currently being investigated for 23 million breaches, they could have done a better job of actually showing up, providing the evidence that they were given notice to provide. They were supposed to give it to us by Wednesday at lunchtime. We've finally received a response from them saying, basically, we're not going to give you anything, or we're going to give you very, very limited information. So just to clarify,
they have provided their response.
Their response
is... They provided what they say will be... They're saying this is the reason why they won't be giving the documents you've requested.
Yeah, here's their response. A couple of pages and, a nice little document that they can put up on their website. This is completely disrespectful to the Australian people, who are very concerned about what this bank's been doing and getting away with.
We've obviously got the action being taken specifically against Westpac and all the information that came out about that to do with the money laundering. So what else is this inquiry actually trying to find out?
Okay, so one of the things that we're concerned about with the inquiry is that audit has to happen and be reported. We want to make sure that that's truthful. But one of the concerns we have is that in addition to doing proper audit work and looking at the books before they go through to the annual reports, these companies are doing more and more and more work inside the banks. One of the things that I wanted to know and have not been provided...
An independence issue you're talking about there.
It's conflict of interest and independence. So one of the things that I wanted to know is how many roles in that sector for anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism fraud were made redundant over the last 3 years. I wanted to know the total number where the incumbent, who was removed from that work, was working for one of the big 4 audit firms. And this is a problem that's right across the sector now. We've got audit firms providing staffing into banks and into other major corporate entities in Australia where there are conflicts of interest, where there is inadequate staffing, and where there's been a failure to respond to documents that were tabled with APRA years ago to make sure that there's adequate protection for the Australian people.
Westpac giving evidence this afternoon, so we might see what comes out of that and check in again later on.
Yeah, well, certainly I won't be allowing this to rest. The committee will determine our action, but, claiming commercial in confidence is not satisfactory for the Australian Parliament. Westpac should know better. They should absolutely know better.
So a couple of other issues before we go. The AFP dropping this investigation into Angus Taylor. Where to for Labor from here? Is that the end of it?
Well, what I wonder, Tom, is why librarians are chasing down the facts through the National Library and the Australian Federal Police are running away from this issue. Angus Taylor has got form on being very slippery with the truth. He's, the poster boy for the lack of ethical action by this government. And sadly, this action not being taken by the AFP has only got to undermine public confidence.
But they've had a task force on it. They haven't been able to find evidence. As it stands, there's no evidence of a forged document.
Well, the question is, we don't know how much effort has been put into looking for that, and we do know that there were...
So you don't trust the AFP?
Well, there were enforcement agents who said that this doctoring absolutely happened in Canberra. That's not been contested. That's not been contested. And there is a very significant trail of evidence to Angus Taylor's office and his staff.
He says that he didn't forge a document. That has been contested.
So Angus Taylor says it wasn't me, but what was going on behind the doors in his own office?
Well, he was saying it wasn't his office. He said that. That is contested.
Yeah, well, I've got grave concerns that the AFP has walked away from this when we know that the Library of Australian librarians chasing down the truth
so you
instead
don't
of
trust
police
the
is a
AFP
problem.
anymore? That's the issue.
And I think that I heard the interview this morning with Clover Moore, and I think that she is articulating what Australians are becoming increasingly
But just want to
aware
clarify
of.
that you don't trust the AFP to properly investigate what this
I'm
is
very
scared to?
concerned about the influence of this government over the independence of many, many agencies, including the AFP. You know, Mr Dutton's got form of, well, he's a policeman, I suppose, that's a great and honourable tradition to be part of. But the Australian people need to see transparently and clearly what the AFP have done in investigating
So
this.
you think because Peter Dutton used to be a state police officer, he's able to influence the
No,
AFP
I think you're trying to put words in my
I'm
mouth
asking
there.
you. That's
Look,
what I'm asking.
I have grave concerns about the fact that people in Australia really don't trust this government. We've got
But I'm
Mr
asking
Angus
what you
Taylor,
trust.
who's...
I'm asking what you trust in terms of the AFP.
Well, my personal trust as a citizen of Australia remains in the institutions that we are part of. But my concern is about the influence of the government over those institutions, and we've seen it's been pretty heavy-handed in the way that it goes about
The government
running
only
this
have
country.
influence if the AFP, for some reason, decides not to pursue something properly. You're still saying the AFP's not pursuing something properly.
Tom, I think we've seen in the last, 3 weeks how far this government will go to protect their own. It took days and days and days, weeks indeed, of pressure for Bridget McKenzie to be held to account. And in the end, the document that the government's relying on, Phil Gaetjen's report, has not been released. This is a pattern with this government. There is no transparency about what's going on, and bit by bit, erosion of trust is a natural consequence of the way this government is governing.
Labor Senator Deborah O'Neill, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.